Hey everyone, my name is Ajay, and today in part 06, we are going to talk about Azure Public DNS infrastructure. Let's try to understand the concept of name servers. So basically, on our internet infrastructure, everything works on TCP/IP, and all the services, whatever we are accessing, it is going to be based on the IP address. For a human being, it is almost impossible to remember all the IP addresses for the services we use on day-to-day basis. Think about a situation instead of you putting in your browser that www.google.com, you need to remember the IP address. So that can be very disastrous, I would say, if you need to recall or you need to remember all the IP addresses for the services we use on daily basis. So name servers, they help in there. So we call it name servers as a directory services. You put something in your browser and you're getting some response, and the response comes in terms of the IP address for that particular host. So let's take a look. This is a machine which does some sort of the query on its browser. It goes to the global DNS infrastructure, and your DNS infrastructure, it contains the root servers, it contains the TLD, and those TLD, they are redirecting it to the name servers. And on these name servers, first of all, these name servers can also be distributed. So for example, this is my first name server. It is in my data center 1. This is my second name server. It is hosted in data center 2, 3, and 4 likewise. So we have the redundancy here as well. And then these name servers, they just do not respond to the DNS query, but they can also do some sort of the redirection. For example, there's a domain which is hosted here. And if I want to create the subdomain, I need to, maybe I'm running multiple departments. So I want to give the ownership for this zone to one of the administrator. So here on this name server, I can do the delegation, and delegation goes towards the child zone, whosoever is hosting this IP address, basically. So it's a kind of the redirection. The original request comes from here to the name server, and this name server tells you need to go to this name server to get the response. Let's try to understand where are your domain's name servers located. So at any given time, whenever you want to run some sort of hosting of the application, or maybe you want to launch some sort of the website, you need to have the domain name, and this domain name you need to register with your registrar. So in my case, I register my domain with GoDaddy. So going forward, I will be quoting GoDaddy in all the examples what we discuss here. So after doing a registration for domain with the GoDaddy, GoDaddy is going to provide name servers. Now I'm going to have two options. Either I continue to use the name servers provided by the GoDaddy and edit my own file to run the services. That is also a possible option. If I want to go for the premium services, GoDaddy also offers those premium services. So premium services can be DNSSEC, that's a DNS security, and they can also do a special services while copying that zone file to their special infrastructure. And it's all about the user proximity. We are going to discuss that in detail. So when we talk about the proximity, all these services, they are going to be based on the anycast. So it is going to be the premium services. So definitely they are going to charge you for these services as well. But by default, whatever the name servers they are going to provide, you can continue to use those as well. Basically, this is not going to be the DNS class, but we are trying to understand what are the services offered by Microsoft Azure. So let's discuss that as well in parallel. So DNS is split into two areas. Either it can be public or it can be private. So Azure is going to offer you both the services. And this is the first section. We are only going to focus on the public DNS infrastructure. Though there is an option for private that I will discuss in the next video. So in a public infrastructure, it is going to be based on the anycast. Let us try to understand Azure anycast infrastructure and why it is needed. So we all know our host-to-host communication over the internet, it works based on the IP address, and the routing protocol is being used as BGP. So BGP builds a routing table, and then if I want to talk from a host, which is here, the host, and the destination, which might be here, it is going to be unicast communication. So there's going to be the BGP routing table, and you are going to do some sort of the route lookup, hop by hop, to reach to the destination from source. If I'm the user here, and if my DNS server is hosted in this region, I might have somewhere around, for example, 700 ms of latency. My user experience is going to be very, very poor because I consume a lot of time to deal with the latency and get the DNS resolution. So in any cast, what you can do, you can basically host the same IP address. If you own the IP address, you can advertise the same IP address from multiple locations. So if I do that way, so I started advertising the same IP address what I used to have here from all these locations. That is something going to build the anycast infrastructure. And now all these reasons, they're advertising the same IP address. So from a user point of view, based on my BGP routing table, I'm going to be redirected to the nearest one. So first, it is going to provide us a latency. That's a benefit. So that's called something the user proximity. Nearer to the user, better is going to be the user experience. Second thing, it also protects us from some sort of the denial of service attack, DDoS attacks. If somebody launched some sort of the DDoS attack for this location, for say, and this is down, now my routing table, it will take me to the next available DNS server. This can be this data center. So my DNS services, they're up all the time. It protects from the DDoS. It gives lower latency. So my user experience is going to be better. That's the reason we go for the anycast, and Azure is providing those DNS anycast services. There's going to be costs involved when you go for Azure-based DNS services. So from the Azure website, you can choose a zone, and it is going, you can also choose a currency basically. And it is going to tell you what it is going to charge you if you go for these services. So for DNS, first 25 hosted DNS zones, it is going to charge you $0.50 per zone per month. Additionally, if you're going to host zones, which is going to be over 25, it is going to charge you $0.10 per zone per month. So these things can be checked, and you can estimate how many requests you are going to have versus the cost going to occur. These zones are based on the geography. So if you go for the zone 1, which I have chosen here, if from the drop down you can see the zone 2, zone 3, and Germany zone and US government zone 1 as well. So it is based on your location. This cost may vary. That is something you need to figure it out. Let's talk about some of the uses limits for Azure DNS services. So as we can see, public DNS zone per subscription, there's going to be a limit, which is 250. Record says per public DNS zone is going to be 10,000. Records per record set in public DNS zones is going to be 20. Number of alias or maybe the CNAMEs for a single Azure resources is going to be 20. This is by default. If you want to modify it, connect your Azure support and they can modify it. This is a soft limit basically. There are root servers also, and those are 13 basically worldwide. And these are also infrastructure which is based on anycast. It doesn't mean that I have only 13 root server. It means I have only 13 physical hosts. That's not true. So this is a website. You can go to rootservers.org and you can see where they are hosted, what are the names and all those things. A very small exercise you can do in your browser. Open the command prompt and type nslookup. When you see this prompt, set query type to name server and put the dot. It is going to return you all the root servers name and the IP addresses basically. This is a list what we can see who's the body managing all these root servers. So name server, which is A, and in this list we can see this is my A. This is the IP address 198.41.0.4. This is managed by VeriSign. Likewise, other root servers, they are managed by some other bodies, which you can refer to this list. Let's also try to understand what exactly happens when we do or browse some of the website, how the whole DNS lifecycle looks like. So this is my host, and from here, I want to go to a website which is host.abc.com. So my first query goes to my local DNS server. This is the LDNS server. If it is cached, then I get the response back. If it is not cached, or maybe I'm trying to access first time, and this local DNS server doesn't know anything about this host name, it is going to redirect to root DNS server. And then the root DNS server, it will tell you should go to the TLD servers basically. So TLD server is something, the top domain like .com, .in, maybe .net or something like that. So it is going to tell, since you are .com, you should go to the .com TLD DNS server. And when you go to the TLD DNS server, as you recall it, your registrar is going to do the registration for your domain. So this is a .com domain. And from .com domain, here you are going to have the name server basically specified. And that name server is going to redirect your request again. So TLD is going to redirect to your name server, and all these DNS server, these are basically the name servers. Here you are going to have the zone files where you actually have the IP address for this host. That is how the whole thing works. Let's come back to our original topic, which is going to be the Azure DNS infrastructure. So from the portal.azure.com, if you're going to search DNS, you're going to see the two options. One is going to be the DNS zone, that is basically our public infrastructure. And if you go for the services which is private DNS, that's definitely is going to be the private only. In this series, we are only going to talk about public infrastructure. We will discuss about DNS zone, all those things. So from the first option, you choose the DNS zones, and then you're going to see there's no DNS zone to display since we never created any. Now you can create DNS zone from here, or maybe you can create from DNS zone to hit the create button. Before we create the DNS zone and do the delegation and all those things, let's try to understand the default stuff which is available. So this is the one machine which I created, which is a DNS test, and this is up and running. I allocated a public IP address which is 2020.81.180. It is part of the VNet 1 and the subnet is web. I see here there's a DNS name option which is given, but it is not configured. Let's explore what we can do here. The moment you hit on the not configured option, you're going to see these options available. So you can choose your DNS name label basically, and it is going to create that entry on cloudapp.azure.com. That's the default option which is available. In my case, I want to name it TechNet Talk, and this is going to be my FQDN. So TechNet Talk dot centralindia.cloudapp.azure.com. That's going to be the FQDN. If I try to browse this from my browser, I need to put the whole FQDN name, technettalk.centralindia.cloudapp.azure.com. And I have Apache 2 running on this machine, so I get the default page. That means this is up and running. A small trick I did in the backend when I was provisioning this Ubuntu server, there's a port 22 as allowed by default. So when you are provisioning any of the service, in this case it's a port 80, so you need to allow those as a part of the network security group. So this is my domain name, technettalk.in, which is registered with the GoDaddy, as I mentioned earlier. Now let's try to create the DNS zone here. The moment I hit the create button, it is going to ask me some basic information. This is my subscription, which is the default one. This is my resource group. This is also existing one. I need to mention the name, which is going to be the exact domain name what I purchased. So it's going to be the technettalk.in. My resource group location is Central India, and now I need to hit review and create. In the next step, it is going to do some sort of the validation, and once your validation is passed, you're going to see this screen, and then you need to hit on the create again. Now my DNS deployment is completed, and I can go to the resource for do the rest of the management activity. From the overview, we can see this is zone file. This already got the NS type and start of authority record. And Azure provides us 4 name servers basically. This is the one, first, second, third, and fourth. These are the name servers we need to configure on GoDaddy to do the delegation. On my GoDaddy portal, I can see this is the domain name I own and the status is active. I hide it, expiry. The rest of the fields is going to be the default one. Under DNS management of technettalk.in domain, which what I own, you can see the record. So you can also create your records here. And for that, these 2 name servers will be used. What we can see here. Since we are going to use DNS services of Microsoft Azure infrastructure, we need to update these default name servers. And we need to put those 4 we got while creating the DNS zone. So here you can see I updated those 4 name servers we got from Azure infrastructure. Now you need to hit the save, and it might take another few minutes to get the settings reflected. Let's first try to verify whether this website works from the IP. Well, it is going to work since we already tested with the DNS name provided by Azure Infrastructure. So the moment I put the IP address for host where I'm running this Apache 2, the default page comes back. Now, on the DNS zone, when we go and create the entry, it is going to be the type A. This is the IP address. And the type is going to be www. Now we can see this one entry here, www, type A, TTL is 3600. The moment you hit the save, it is going to have entry here. So you can create as many as entries you want. You can also have option to create the child zones, record type. You have option to delete, refresh. A simple way to manage the zone files basically. Since we created the A record on the DNS zone, now let's try to access the website with the domain name. So the moment I put www.technettalk.in, I can see it is reflecting the same web page. So it means the domain registration, it works, and all the delegation what we have done, we have ways to verify it. So now let's do some small exercise to verify whatever the changes we made, whether those reflects or not. So from the command prompt, type the nslookup. When we type www.technet.in, it is going to reflect the same IP address we created the entry for. That's the first validation, which is passed. Second, go and set query type name server. Now, if I do www.technet.talk.in, it is going to tell you who is responding this query. So this is going to be the first name server. Now question comes, we specified 4 name servers, how we can verify it. So I'm going to verify, I'm going to put my LDNS to 8888 and just remove www, just put simple technettalk.in. It is going to reflect all the 4 name server we configured. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.